Hello, I'm Chad Pitts with the Iowa Golf Association. A question we get quite often here at the IGA has to do with slope rating and how it relates to the difficulty of the golf course. I'm going to take a minute to help explain what slope rating is and how it relates to the difficulty of a course. When a course rating is performed, a golf course is evaluated from the perspective of two golfers, the scratch golfer and the bogey golfer. This means that two numbers are established. These are the expected scores of those two players, known as the course rating or scratch rating and the bogey rating. Slope rating actually indicates the relative difficulty of a course of players who are not scratch players to those that are scratch players. So in a more simple way to put this is the bigger difference between the scratch or course rating and the bogey rating, then the higher the slope. Now let's take a look at our graph. We've got the course rating on the left, which is also the scratch rating. We've got the bogey rating on the right, and then along the bottom we have the handicap index of our golfers. The first course we're going to look at as an example is the black course, and you can see on here that the black course up at the top has a course rating of 72.5, a bogey rating of 96.8, and a slope rating of 131. So if we draw that on our graph, we start at 72.5 over on the left, 96.8 over on the right. Simply connect those 2 points with a line, and you can kind of see how steep that line is, and that's actually indicates a slope rating of 131. So now let's bring in another golf course, the blue golf course. Now the blue course has a course rating, if you look at the top, of 71.5 and a bogey rating of 95.7, also equating to a slope of 131. The difference between those two is 24.2, while the difference between the blacks was 24.3. It does come out on the formula to both be a slope rating of 131, but as you can see on the graph that these two lines run parallel to each other. So now you ask yourself the question, which of these two courses is more difficult? Because they're both slope rating of 131. Well, the black course would actually be more difficult for basically every type of golfer, because the scratch golfer, it's about plays one stroke harder when you compare the two course ratings, and the bogey player plays about one stroke or just over one stroke harder when you compare those two ratings, the bogey ratings. So which golf course is more difficult? You would say the black one is. But if you just looked at the slope rating, people would look at that and say, well, they're of equal difficulty. Well, that's actually not the case in this particular instance. Now I'm going to take away the blue course for a second and bring in the red course here. First I'm going to bring it up to the top. And this time let's imagine that we have a course rating of 73.1 and a bogey rating of 96.0, and that's going to equate to a slope of 124. So before I bring in the line, you can almost probably kind of imagine what it's going to do. And here we go. The red line, we've got a little bit flatter line when you connect the 2 points, but you can see where they intersect. It intersects with the black golf course. So again, which golf course is harder? Well, if you're a scratch player, the red course is going to be harder, about 0.6 strokes or a little over half a stroke harder. And if you're a bogey player, it's the red course is a little easier, 0.8 strokes easier, so nearly a full stroke easier. And that's where you got to be really careful if you're just looking at slope rating when you're talking about difficulty of a golf course, because you could have a golf course, of a lower slope, but depending on the quality of golfer you are, then if you're not looking at that course rating as well, in addition to the slope, you're really not getting the full picture. That's the main thing. You need to make sure that you're aware of the course rating when you're, as well as the slope rating when you're talking about difficulty of a course. I do want to point out one neat little trick when looking at slope ratings. If you take the slope rating and divide it by 100, that's how many strokes per 1 point increase in handicap index a golfer is expected to shoot. I'm going to show you an example to help clarify this. Let's say if we look along the bottom, we've got a slope rating of 140. That means that scores are expected to increase 1.4 strokes for every 1.0 increase in handicap. 140 divided by 100 is 1.4. If you had a slope of 120, you'd say 1.2 strokes for every one increase. So to show a little bit of an example, let's imagine we have two players competing on a course with a slope of 140. One player has a course handicap of 8 and the other has a course handicap of 2. The person who is an 8 would be expected to shoot 8.4 strokes higher than the person with a 2. So 8 minus 2 is a 6-stroke difference between these two golfers, and then 6 times 1.4 equals 8.4. So I hope that helps explain a little bit about slope ratings and how they relate to difficulty. Again, the main thing, don't just look at the slope rating alone. Make sure you're looking at the course rating as well, and if possible, again, that sometimes these aren't, most of the time these aren't published on scorecards, but if you are able to get a hold of the bogey ratings, take a look at those as well. But if you know the course rating and know the slope rating, you're getting pretty much the full picture of the difficulty of the course at that point.